Yo, what's going on, everybody? I'm David Jones, joined by Adam Pfeifer here on FTN Daily, presented by MOJO, Super DFS Breakdown Show. We're going to be talking about the showdown slate leading up into the Super Bowl. Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, two juggernauts, going to try and go through the play, see who we like, break both teams down, land on some captains at the end of the show, land on some flex plays, some salary savers, all that good stuff. This is the first look show. We wanted this to be up on YouTube to start breaking it down. We are going to do another Super Bowl showdown show on FTN Daily the morning of. Morning of the Super Bowl. I'll be joined by Alex Blickel, our resident Philadelphia Eagles fan, to give us his thoughts on the game. Hopefully we can win a lot of money. Millie Maker up top on DraftKings. A lot of people going to have to beat a lot of people. We're going to try and do it. We've done it before. Adam, say what's up to everybody and late condolences, I guess, about your Buffalo Bills not being in the big game.
Yeah, which sucks. But I was on vacation, so I didn't have to watch or really care about the championship games. You know, I got to be in Disney trying to forget that the Bills weren't playing that weekend, so it could have been a lot worse. But yeah, like I was talking to Meanie earlier. Like, I'm in the PA area as a Bills fan, so like 90% of my friends are obviously Philadelphia Eagle fans, and it's like, yeah, 5 years ago was cool, man. They got the title. I was very happy for them, and now I'm just like, okay, are you guys really gonna get a second before I even get one? I'm being petty. I'll be happy for them if they win. But yeah, it should be a fun game. I mean, the Eagles have been the best roster, the best team in football all season. And we knew the Chiefs were going to have as good of a shot as anybody to be there because they have the best player in football on their team. So it'll be a fun game. I am looking forward to watching it, although I must admit I've just been trying to forget football has existed for the last couple weeks. But like, you know, it's the life of a Bills fan during the months of January and February.
Yeah, sorry to bring that up, but hey, I mean, I like the Dolphins this year, but you know, the left arm of God got hurt.
Listen, I was very, very tilted during that Miami Buffalo game. A, because it would have been one of the worst losses in the history of the franchise for Buffalo, and B, I would have had, like, you probably would have trolled me, but like,
yeah,
you're a huge Tua guy, and Tua didn't play, so I don't know if it would have been as bad, but it would have been a bad loss. But like, yeah, you were very high in Miami in the offseason, and that would have been just the absolute worst if they lost that game.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll never know. We'll have to wait till next season when Tua comes back. Zero concussions next year is the goal for Tua Tagovailoa. Hey, let's talk about the Super Bowl. So let's go through. Let's talk about some of the injury stuff that could happen. We expect to happen here. Specifically, we'll start with the Chiefs, the wide receivers. The entire wide receiver room got beat up last game, which led to MVS having the game of his career at 6% ownership, mind you, on a 2-game slate that I almost won. I don't know if you were keeping up with that. I was in second place with like a minute and a half in the Millie Maker.
Oh wow, yeah. Like I said, I wasn't even like. I was like on one of the buses from Disney during these games. So,
well, yeah, I was like looking at 500K with a minute and a half left, and then Joe Burrow threw that interception, and I died. I still made a little money, but you know, $500,000 or $1 million is good. That's what we'll try and do now. But MVS had a great game. Of course, you had Kadarius Toney go out. You had McCole Hardman, who was pushing through a hip injury, came out for that game. I love Hardman this year, but I don't think if any of them aren't going to play, I would have to think it's McCole Hardman. It has not been positive news reports coming out of Chiefs camp. Then Sky Moore got injured that last game too, right?
Yeah, like they just had multiple injuries as of late. Juju left early. Toney played 4 snaps and then he left. But yeah, like Hardman, I think Andy Reid came out like 4 or 5 days ago and said it's not looking very likely that he plays. I would expect, I mean, it's a Super Bowl. They have the extra week, obviously. So, like, I would expect Juju to play. Toney, I have no idea because he's had multiple injuries, whether it's been hamstring, ankle, whatever, you know, for his entire career so far. So, he, to me, seems like 100% up in the air. But, yeah, this is really the main injury story. It's just this Chiefs wide receiver room outside of MVS, who, like you said, had that monster game last week. And he always plays a ton of snaps anyway, but
Yeah.
we'll see if they're shorthanded again in wide receiver. It looks like they'll at least be without Hardman, barring any crazy kind of change of events.
I think that Tony gets in there, but I just don't think he makes it the entire game, right? Like, it's a Super Bowl. You're going to go out there and try, like, if you can. He came in, oh God, what week was it? Week 10, got injured, was out 3 weeks, came back after that, played 4 weeks, got injured again last week. It's this hamstring that's been bothering him for years. I think he tries to play through it, but I'm with you. I don't think Hardman gets there. Last week, the Chiefs had MVS play snaps, Juju play snaps. Justin Watson actually didn't get in the game, but he was also out. He was sick. He would come in and take the Marcus Kemp snaps. Marcus Kemp got in there, ran some routes last time. Hardman played. Sky Moore played. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 receivers for the Chiefs played, which is the most that they played the entire season. But again, everyone was getting hurt. You would expect that if Hardman's out, you're going to get Juju, MVS, Justin Watson behind Tony and Sky Moore. Getting the snaps there, but we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully everyone doesn't get hurt again, but let's just start with Patrick Mahomes, man. It's a showdown slate. You've got Patrick Mahomes. He didn't need the wide receivers last game, although it wasn't a giant game for Mahomes. It was still the best on the slate out of all 4 of the quarterbacks. You didn't really have to do too much, but he showed he can still get it done with just about anybody, including his running backs, which is an interesting point on this show too, that we're going to get to next, but because they can all catch passes. But I mean, how are you weighing Mahomes? Mahomes versus Hurts, I guess, is probably the best way to do it. Do you have to play Mahomes over Hurts, Hurts over Mahomes? Do you have to play both? I kind of lean it. You got to find a way to play both of these guys in at least half your lineups.
Yeah, it'll be tough not to. It's Jalen Hurts had that weird game in the NFC title game where it's like he didn't have to do much because they had 2 touchdowns to Sanders, 1 to Boston Scott. Hurts did, I believe, get one of the QB sneak touchdowns from a yard out, but like that was a weird game where with Purdy's injury and then Josh Johnson's injury, like San Fran was down by like multiple scores and still couldn't really throw the football. So like they were just ultra conservative on the Philadelphia side. Like the only way the 49ers would have gotten back in that game is if they had turnovers. So the Eagles were pretty conservative on offense. I don't expect that to be the same, especially because we've seen them be very pass heavy on early downs. The Chiefs defense, like it's by far the weakest of these two. So matchup wise, definitely lean towards Jalen Hurts. Mahomes interesting though, because like we don't know who his receivers are going to be at the moment. We expect it to be at least MVS and obviously Kelsey. But as of right now, like that's really the extent of it. I'm interested to see if the Eagles. I don't think they will, and we'll talk about it. Like the Eagles play mostly zone defense. They have the personnel in this game and in most games to play a lot of man. I would expect them to continue to play zone though. But yeah, like the matchup wise, definitely leans Jalen Hurts. He hasn't had monster games in these playoffs so far, but again, a 38-7 win against the Giants, and then last week's game where they didn't have to do much because they weren't pushed to score, and there were some unlucky touchdown variants where Sanders had a couple like touchdowns where he was untouched, and then Scott got one or Gainwell, I forget who it was, but don't expect that to happen. This should be a game where Jalen Hurts has to do a lot more.
Yeah, they really didn't have to call on him too much. And by the way, he's still nursing that shoulder as well too. It gives him a couple more weeks to get healthier there, but it does look like something that's still bothering him. When he took a hit last game, and you could tell it was bothering him a little bit. Then like a play or two later, he slid, making sure he didn't get contact again. If you're looking at how the Eagles are going to stack up versus the Chiefs as far as being able to throw the ball, yeah, it's going to be harder to throw the ball on the Eagles. Going to be easier to throw the ball on the Chiefs. As far as running the ball, you have the Chiefs actually allowed less touchdowns than the Eagles on the ground this year, which is interesting, but pulling it back to the Chiefs, like Patrick Mahomes it can do anything, right? So when you look at these showdown slates, there was a chunk of time in between the season where double quarterback builds on these showdown slates was taking it down like every week. Then it kind of died off. Now we have 2 very elite quarterbacks. You've got Jalen Hurts who can run the ball. You've got Patrick Mahomes who's going to be throwing it to Kelsey and these cheap wide receivers a lot, and the running back. So yeah, I'm high on Patrick Mahomes. I'd play him over at MVP over on FanDuel along with Jalen Hurts. I'll probably just play the quarterbacks over there at that spot. And then, yeah, if you can fit him in captain, that's great. But I also think there's value that you'd probably rather play on DraftKings at the captain spot. We'll get through there. As far as the running backs for the Chiefs go, so to me, this is a big question mark. You've got Isaiah Pacheco, who's really been busting out lately. Jerick McKinnon, who's taken a step back, even though he had that great end of the regular season run, catching touchdown passes every single week, it seemed like, from Patrick Mahomes. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Do you expect Clyde Edwards-Helaire to be active at $1,000 on DraftKings?
No.
You don't think so? I think he is. I mean,
he might like active maybe, but like I don't see a way he plays meaningful snaps. I know he's 1,000, like you mentioned, but like McKinnon, I think, is going to be pivotal in this game, especially with these wide receiver injuries. And Clyde is nowhere near the receiving back that McKinnon is. And then Isaiah Pacheco's obviously emerged as the lead, running back. I don't know. Like, I could easily be wrong. He could be active, but I don't envision him doing much or even touching the ball much, because why go away from these two that have been really good for the last 7, 8, 9 weeks? But I could easily be wrong.
I mean, yeah. So it's a showdown slate. So he's $1,000. If he's active, if he gets in there, if he touches the ball a couple times, he could get there. This is a guy I should not be leading with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I've been thinking about it a lot. It's a guy that came in and got 3 touchdowns at the first game of the season, I think it was.
Yeah, he had this ridiculously unsustainable touchdown stretch where he was scoring multiple touchdowns on like 35% of the snaps, and he was like the easiest trade candidate in season long. And then he finally stopped scoring touchdowns and unfortunately got hurt. But yeah, like I just think it's going to be a situation where he wasn't activated before the championship game, so he obviously gets an extra week to be activated. Even if he is, like, does he play 10 snaps? I don't know.
Right. Like, yeah, he would have to get in the end zone. I would think it'd be a, red zone, throwing the ball kind of thing.
And the problem is, like, McKinnon plays a ton of snaps in the red zone.
Yep.
Like, even when it was just Clyde and McKinnon for a little bit to start the season, before Pacheco kind of emerged, McKinnon was playing a ton of snaps in the red zone and getting a ton of red zone targets. So, like, he might just honestly be activated and he'll play if one of the other running backs needs a rest or there's an injury or something. I don't see him kind of being mixed into the offense without anything happening to McKinnon or Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, I agree with that. Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, do you have a preference on either of these guys? We saw Pacheco. I mean, he looks explosive, and we saw him get to an extent, right? He looked more explosive against the Jaguars, but then we saw him involved in the passing game pretty heavily because they kind of had to. I don't think that's going to be the script like, hey, now Isaiah Pacheco's all of a sudden one of our guys that we're going to target the most in the pass game, unless we lose 3 wide receivers, which they could during the game, but I expect them all to start. If you have to choose one, Jerick McKinnon and Pacheco, who are you going with? They are priced pretty similar, 7,200, 6,800 for McKinnon. And would you consider playing them in the same lineup?
Probably not in the same lineup, although like with the injuries to this Kansas City wide receiver room, you would expect a lot of targets to Kelsey, and then especially in the matchup, a lot of targets to the running backs. Isaiah Pacheco, like the receptions, 5, 6 targets last game. He ran 26 routes to McKinnon's 16. Those feel like outliers. But yeah, like McKinnon still projects as the running back we expect to catch more passes. And the Eagles, they just kind of, the way they're off their defense, they play a lot of zone. So naturally, zone defenses tend to, give up more receptions to running backs to start with. And then you look at the fact that they also play, when they do play man, they have arguably the best, outside cornerback duo in the league with Darius Slay and James Bradbury. So, and then you have no perimeter receivers that you're really worried about from Kansas City, especially with the injuries. So, I think one of these running backs absolutely gets there and can easily score and catch 4, 5, 6 passes. It's just kind of weird to see Pacheco as the lead receiving running back last week as opposed to McKinnon. But I think you should have interest in both. The same lineup, I probably wouldn't go there, but in general, you should probably have some interest in both.
Eagles pretty decent against pass catching backs. They've allowed 3 receiving touchdowns so far this season, averaging, is that right, 86 receiving yards to the running back per game. No, that's receptions. 86 receptions on the season, 542 yards total. That includes the postseason. It doesn't really matter to me that much if you're going to have to force these running backs the ball. And I feel like it's a tough call between Pacheco and McKinnon for me because either one of them could do it. It's kind of whichever one gets the hot hand. I mean, I'd still lean on McKinnon as the receiver, and Pacheco, it's going to be more difficult to run for him, so maybe I lean McKinnon there with a 1-point PPR pass-catching structure. Over there on DraftKings, as far as the wide receivers go, this is probably where it gets more difficult for Kansas City Chiefs. They're all underpriced. I would have to say for, your starting wide receivers, Juju's 5,600, MVS 62, Sky Moore never does anything, 3,800, Kadarius Toney, great out of the slot, 4,400, probably won't last the entire game, but could get in the end zone. McCole Hardman, probably not going to play. Justin Watson, it's always a dart throw. Where do you lean when lining up these receivers with their matchups against the cornerback for the Eagles?
Yeah, as long as he's healthy, Juju probably projects the best. The Eagles are, over the course of the season, they've allowed 8.3 targets per game to the slot. It's the most in football, according to our advanced DVP tool at FTN Fantasy. They also have allowed 5.5 receptions to the slot. That's the third most in the league this season. Second most receiving yards per game from the slot at just under 69. So the matchup definitely favors Juju, but obviously Kelsey's going to play a lot from inside too. So, and we have to remember, yes, the receivers, the players that are listed at wide receiver on the depth chart are banged up for the Chiefs, but Travis Kelce is a wide receiver that is at tight end. So really, he's obviously, we'll talk about it, but if I'm the Eagles here, I don't think they'll do it, but I'm just doubling Travis Kelce this game. What's stopping you from doubling him, especially if Juju somehow doesn't play? You can have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson kind of shadow him, help with somebody else, and just kind of bracket coverage him and say, you know what? If MVS beats us against Darius Slay on the outside, if Justin Watson or Juju or whoever, Sky Moore, Toney, if they beat James Bradbury on the other side, so be it. We're not going to let Travis Kelce have a game like he did against Jacksonville where he has 18 targets and 15 catches. Having said that, Kelce, I don't expect that to happen. We say that a lot. Why don't they just double him?
Well, they said last game against the Bengals.
Yeah. But that's also a situation where the Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, he is the best second half adjustment defensive coordinator in football. So he's always making adjustments. It's very rare that teams just go into a game and say, we're doubling this player most of the game. So I don't expect it to happen, but I would strongly consider it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you there. It makes sense. But also, he's just such a target monster, man. He's got that playoff. Kelsey's got the playoff record of just getting so many targets. And
if you don't, the problem with teams is you can't give Travis Kelce a free release. And 90% of the time he gets a free release. Yeah. So it's just because he's too good. But then if you try to press him, he's obviously still massive at tight end. So, in the matchup, like I mentioned, everything tends to funnel to the middle of the field against the Eagles because they have those two really good perimeter corners. They have improved safety play now that Gardner-Johnson's back. And to be fair, the slot is where you target them. Yeah. But Avonte Maddox being healthy, he's a strong slot defensive back. So it's not the easiest matchup, but just based off the numbers, that's where a lot of the production goes to against this Eagles passing game. So
Avonte Maddox, good corner for sure, but certainly when you're looking at the outside versus the slot, slot's giving up 83% catch rate for the Eagles. That's pretty high, just for any team.
Yeah.
And then on the outside, much better with Bradbury and Slay. I mean, Slay's giving up 55% catch rate. Bradbury's giving up a 46% catch rate. So we want to target the slot. We know that you bring up Juju, who's going to run some of his routes out of the slot, about 39% on the season out of the slot. But then you're also going to have Toney when he's in there running out of the slot too. I mean, I'm not a big Juju guy at all. I think he's way overhyped. I made the point on the last show. If he was on the Steelers again this season, he would have had 30 fantasy points total this season, if that. Just not a big Juju fan, but if he's healthy, I think he's healthier than Kadarius Toney. So, I mean, I guess I'd have to lean there a little bit, but I think Toney's pretty much in the same spot. If I'm building teams, I might not play both of them on the same team, but I probably want one of them. if I'm making 10 teams, I'd probably want one of them on at least like 6 of the teams. But I'll lean Juju there. MVS, he's going to have a much tougher day. I think people will kind of gravitate to him because of the big game that he had. He is not a big game wide receiver. I'm just not that high on MVS either. He's going to have a tough matchup when he's seeing Slay, and then when he has to see Bradbury some of the time when he's over there on the right side. I don't think it's the MVS spot, especially if McCole Hardman's in. That takes away from MVS. But again, we don't think McCole Hardman's going to be in there. So give me Juju, give me Tony, then give me MVS in that order.
Yeah, and in case like Tony doesn't play,
yeah,
then you start to say, okay, like you mentioned, Justin Watson was sick last game, but he was full in practice, so he looks trending towards playing. They have a lot of these games this season when somebody's been out at wide receiver. They've a lot of the times, and granted, a lot of it was early in the season for a rookie, but they've been more inclined to go to Justin Watson than Sky Moore. Sky Moore had just actually regained the role of returning punts, which he actually had that really nice return to set up the game-winning field goal. But if Tony's also out, so if they're without Tony and Hardman, Watson and Sky Moore to an extent obviously become a lot more interesting, especially because because MVS has great speed. He can get over the top. Playing defensive back in the NFL is extremely difficult. So guys can get beat all the time on one play. But if that doesn't happen and MVS does struggle like we probably expect, then it's all of a sudden a lot of the production is going to Juju, Kelsey, then who else? Well, maybe it's just Juju, Kelsey, and the running backs, but obviously Watson and Sky Moore would be a lot more interesting if Hardman and Tony are out.
I mean, yeah, that could easily just turn into Mahomes throwing to the running backs, right? Like if they're having that same trouble again, he's got good pass catching running backs, and one out of the 3, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is active, is going to be able to stay in the game and do something. Then whoever fumbles is out. That's probably Clyde Edwards-Helaire too. So yeah, again, we're doing a first look here. Come over to FTN Daily on Sunday, and we'll break down once we know what the injury outcome is, and we'll break it down and try and win some money. I'll also have my article over there about how to MME this thing, try and win some dollars. The Sky Moore, you bring up Sky Moore, I didn't even bring him up. Not a big Sky Moore fan either. They try and get him involved like odd. They try and give him the ball kind of like they would do it with Tyreek Hill, like out of the backfield sometimes, or just give him a sweep, although it's completely different players. Maybe they see something in Sky Moore, just dump it down, but I haven't seen that translate. I guess it's working in practice, but at the same time, why wouldn't you just do that with one of the running backs? They're going to be better at it at this point in Sky Moore's career, which might get better. He's a rookie, but tough first season for him. If I had to choose Sky Moore or Justin Watson, if we're talking like Tony, Hardman, Juju out, I'd probably take Justin Watson. He's cheaper. I trust his hands a little bit more, but these aren't plays like I'm hammering him or anything. I'd rank it Juju, like I already did. Juju, Tony, MVS.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Travis Kelce, we talked about him already a little bit. We won't get into it too much, but I'm going to have a significant amount of the guy. Like, even if he's getting double teamed some of the game, which Adam made the point they should probably try and do that, stop the best offensive weapon, obviously, he's still going to get the targets, man. Like, the targets are going to be there. He's going to get the red zone looks once they're down in the red zone, however many times that happens. I'm still going to want some Travis Kelce. Like, it's going to, even like if you just go look at his game log as far as fantasy stuff goes, sometimes he has a down game. A down game for him is 10 fantasy points. A ceiling game is 35, 40.
Yeah, I think in the regular season he had either 90 receiving yards or a touchdown in like 13, 14 of the games. Like, it's just, he's either like, because he's essentially a wide receiver at tight end, he's giving you more like 90-plus yard games than a lot of receivers. And, of course, he was like top 5 in the entire NFL in end zone targets. He gets those easy, quick kind of like shovel pass screen targets from inside the 5 where it's just like all of a sudden he catches the ball at the 3-yard line, has a wall of blockers in front of him, and he falls in the end zone. Like, you can't really stop that, whether you try to double team him or not. So, yeah, like, I may say that if I'm the defensive coordinator for Philadelphia, I'm just doubling Travis Kelce. But also, then you're giving Patrick Mahomes, one-on-one coverage everywhere else and potentially leaving somebody else open. So it's like, I don't envision it happening. But, yeah, at the end of the day, like, I thought Kittle was going to have a huge game against Philly last week. Obviously, the quarterback situation changed things for that team. But it's just where we've seen teams find success against Philadelphia for like 2 years now, so...
well, I mean, they've been pretty good against the tight end this year, Philadelphia.
But like they've been good at limiting production. It's just like where the ball goes. And if the ball is going to Travis Kelce multiple times or many times, he's going to get it done. And he's amazing anyway, but he's also great at finding the soft spots in zone defenses. That's what Philly's going to mostly play in this game. So, yeah, like Kelce is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting once again this week with all these injuries. And, I expect at least 12 targets probably once again.
Yeah. And if the wide receiver room is beat up like it was last game, I mean, we saw Kansas City run some 2 tight end sets. Noah Gray, everyone was on for some reason last week. And then Blake Bell maybe gets in there. Jody Fortson maybe gets in there. Any interest behind Kelce, like Gray or Bell? To me, it would have to be one of those two would have to get in the end zone. It could happen. Yeah. Unlikely to happen. I mean, we're looking, you're starting to look at your 7th, 8th, 9th best weapons when you get down there, but it's also the guys that the Eagles defense isn't going to be as drawn to as someone like a Travis Kelce or a Jerick McKinnon. So Gray and Bell, Fortson.
You're literally hoping for a 1st and goal play action, wide open touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, sprinkle them in if you want MME. But yeah, you're not really on that. If you have to choose one Kansas City guy, not Patrick Mahomes, it can be Kelce, can be running back, salary considered. Who's your favorite guy?
I mean, it's probably Kelce, but I will say this feels like a McKinnon game.
Mm-hmm. Who was the running back when they won last time?
Damian Williams. He should have won Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, Damian Williams. Was it it was a big receiving day for him, or was he running it? I forget.
I think he did a little of everything. I'll pull up the exact. It was the Super Bowl they won, right? Yeah. Because now I'm interested. I know for a fact it was Damian Williams. He had a huge game, and like I said, he probably should have won Super Bowl MVP that season.
Yeah.
What would it have been? 2019. Yeah, he had 17 carries for 104 yards and touchdown, 4 catches for 29 yards and a second touchdown.
Not bad. Throw it to your backs. All right, let's flip it over to the Eagles. Talk through this. Jalen Hurts. Look, obviously, you're going to probably want some Jalen Hurts in your lineups. He runs it. He throws it. He's a good quarterback. I want double quarterback builds. Some people are going to say that's chalky. Well, you'd probably be surprised. I mentioned that some of the winners were double quarterback builds this season, and they can solo ship. You just have to get the other pieces right. They can solo ship. You just got to do it right. But you definitely want one of the quarterbacks. If I have to choose Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes, it's probably going to be Hurts for me, just because I can get some of the rushing equity there, but that doesn't mean Mahomes can't outscore him. But I'd probably choose Jalen Hurts if I'm starting my lineups. Definitely over on FanDuel at the MVP. He'd be my favorite one.
Yeah, like we talked about, like we haven't even seen anything close to his upside in these playoffs, and this feels like a game where, for the first time in these playoffs, the Eagles are pushed because they're facing Patrick Mahomes. You love everything he brings to the table. Not only is he throwing the ball deep a lot, but throwing the ball a lot, he's also giving you, 8 to 10 carries per game that if they get 1st and goal from the 1, he's probably scoring. There's 6 points right there. The Chiefs defense, better lately, but they still have a really young, inexperienced secondary we'll talk about. They're starting 2 rookies in Watson and Trent McDuffie in the Super Bowl against A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
Watson's made some plays for them. McDuffie's a first-round pick. Solid players, but still matchups that you definitely can take advantage of, especially with those wide receivers. So that obviously bodes well for Jalen Hurts as well. And like you mentioned, he gets an extra week to kind of rest that shoulder.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, we're high on Jalen Hurts. Obviously, that's not news. Talking about the running backs, more difficult spot for them. The running backs have been having a great couple weeks for Philadelphia. Maybe relying on them more. Well, probably because it was working, so they just kept doing it against the Giants and the 49ers, who gave up 4 touchdowns or something like that on the ground. Disgusting. But yeah, more difficult match for them. I'm not a huge Miles Sanders guy. I'll probably play 0 Boston Scott, even though he keeps scoring, but the scores aren't enough to win on the showdown lineup. Well, maybe on a showdown, but it wasn't enough to win on the 2 gamers because he's just getting a single touchdown. Kenny Gainwell, if they're trailing, perhaps he gets more involved. If something happens to Sanders, perhaps he gets more involved. We saw him bust a 70-yard run or something 2 weeks ago. Maybe he has an explosive play. It's more difficult to run on the Chiefs than it is on the Eagles traditionally this season. I'm going to agree the Eagles are a better defensive unit, like no doubt about it. But the Chiefs aren't that simple to run on, and I don't think we're dealing with any behemoths in the backfield for the Eagles. So I'm not too high on the running backs. If you're mixing them in, you're mixing them in. It's fine, but I'm not taking a stand on any of them. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, I mean, like, we know the Eagles can run on anybody. Their offensive line generates yards before contact at
This is
one
true.
of the best rates in football. I think Miles Sanders, we have advanced premium stats at FTN Fantasy, and it shows like the amount of carries a running back has had where they've been untouched. And Sanders has been like top 5 in that category for much of the season. And we saw that last week against the best run defense in football, where his 2 touchdowns, he pretty much was untouched.
True.
And that just kind of shows what this offensive line can do. Now, Kansas City has not allowed a lot of rushing touchdowns. In fact, 74% of the touchdowns against them this year have come via the pass. It's the second highest rate in football. So they have been mostly a pass funnel, which does make me like Hurts in the passing game more. I do have some interest in Gainwell, though. Like, he was, honestly, I think Kenneth Gainwell might have been their best offensive player last week. Again, they didn't have to do much, but he looked really good. Is going to play most of the third and longs. And the Chiefs, like, they give up so much production to the running backs in the passing game. 6.5 receptions per game to running backs, the most in the league. 7.9 targets per game, second most in the league. Philadelphia doesn't throw to the running backs a ton, but when they do, it's usually to Kenneth Gainwell, who is probably going to get, like, he's obviously not going to get, like, 15 touches or anything like that. But in a game like this, or just in general, especially after what he did in the NFC Championship game, like, again, 14 attempts, I would not expect. The 12 attempts, again, that game was out of hand, but he could get 7 to 10. And, like, it wouldn't shock me if he saw the same amount of touches as one of the Chiefs running backs, who probably won't be as, popular for Gainwell. So I do have some interest in Gainwell. If you go to Sanders, I get it because he's still getting the majority of the carries, but you also have to wonder, like, he's been much better in scoring touchdowns this season, but if he doesn't get those 2 untouched scores from last week, he's always been touchdown dependent anyway. And like I mentioned, the Chiefs have mostly given up passing touchdowns as opposed to rushing touchdowns. So I actually have some interest in Kenneth Gainwell.
You make a good point. How much Boston Scott gonna have?
I would just rather go to Gainwell. Again, Boston Scott's not playing the Giants, so
his salary's up. He's 4,500. Oh, that's if you're looking at him in the captain. He's 3,000 if you're not. Touchdown each of the last 3 weeks. But look, it's the Super Bowl. I don't think you're going to have much Boston Scott getting in there.
I mean, he played 30% of the snaps last game, same as Sanders, but like Sanders in a competitive game is going to be closer to 50. But, like, Gainwell's been playing anyway. Like, it's not like this is, like, suddenly Gainwell playing 42% of snaps. He was 37% against the Giants, about 30% the last couple weeks of the season, 42% in Week 16. Like, I think Gainwell, after especially what he showed last week, he could be in line for, like, 7 to 10 touches.
Gainwell, you're saying? Not Scott? Yeah, I'm joking about Boston Scott. Like the last 2 weeks, total blowouts. Week before that, the Giants. If you don't know, Boston Scott scores every single time he plays the Giants and then some. Before that, during the season, I mean, you're looking at Miles Sanders getting, like Adam said, just over 50%, anywhere from 50 to 65% of the snaps, more in like the 57 range. Kenny Gainwell behind him, let's call it 27% of the snaps usually. And then before the last 3 weeks, Boston Scott's highest snap count was in week 13. I'd have to go back and see what that was with 23% of the snaps, but he's usually looking more around like 10% of the snaps towards the end of the game if he's even getting the ball. I'm not playing Boston Scott. It's too expensive for me. Hopefully it doesn't. That might be a full fade for me in the Super Bowl. Seems reasonable. The wide receivers, they're in a great spot. They're in the best spot for the Eagles. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. You're essentially flipping a coin on these 2 guys. Devontae Smith's been the guy recently. Hurts doesn't care. Whoever's open, that's who's getting the ball. Who's going to be open more, A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith?
I've leaned A.J. Brown here. Like, Jalen Watson has been, like I said, he's been solid this season for a late rookie draft pick, but 0.25 fantasy points per coverage route according to our wide receiver cornerback matchup. he gives up a lot of explosive plays, and that's what you look for with AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chiefs as a team are bottom 5 in yards after the catch allowed, and that's where AJ Brown really, thrives off these quick slants and everything. So I do like AJ Brown more in this spot. But like it's a concentrated passing offense, and Devonta Smith has been fantastic this season too. Both will get multiple deep targets, and like L'Jarius Sneed, another solid corner, but he's also given up 0.25 points per coverage route. So like there's opportunities for both players. But AJ Brown against Jalen Watson in the Super Bowl seems like a spot to attack.
Yeah, that doesn't seem too bad. L'Jarius Sneed, do you have him playing on the outside against Smith more, or I would think so, aside from going into the slot where he played most of the season, but it's only about 71%. It really depends on matchups with
Yeah, and the problem
Sneed.
is like Smith hasn't played inside that much. Like they've really just had Quez play on the inside, and then Zach Pascal when he comes in plays inside. So like I don't think they just say, you know what, Sneed, you stay on the inside because he's arguably their best corner.
Right.
I don't,
I'm with you. Like, I think he's going to be on Smith more than not. But that also, he probably a lot of the game, actually. But he's their best corner. It doesn't mean he's not beatable, though.
Yeah.
I'll
like
go ahead.
Jalen Watson's played pretty well this year, but 7th round draft pick in the Super Bowl against AJ Brown. Like,
Yeah. I'm with you, homie. I'll take AJ Brown over Smith at this point in time. Quez Watkins out of the slot. I mean, it's going to have to be a big play for him to get there. Same with like Zach Pascal. I'm not touching any Greg Ward or Tyree Cleveland if he's even on the team anymore. Any of these other guys. You've got 4 to choose from: Brown, Smith. AJ Brown actually correlates best when Jalen Hurts has ceiling games. But you don't even necessarily you have to have a good game, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge ceiling game. But if you're interested in the correlation between those two, AJ Brown and Hurts tend to pair up the best. Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal, super cheap. You need a big play from both of them. Could happen, I guess. You into it?
Yeah, I'm fine with Quez. Like I would have more interest in Quez than a handful of the Kansas City receivers, to be honest.
Okay.
He's mostly going to play inside. The Eagles don't run a ton of 3 wide sets, but all it takes is one play with him, and like Jalen Hurts will throw deep. So I have no problem with him.
Doesn't it feel like, I mean, Hurts locks into Brown and Smith so much, and Goddard now too, right? He just locks into them. It does not leave much for Quez. Quez has 0 catches so far in the postseason, targeted once. That doesn't mean it can't happen. I mean, there's been games where I think someone was banged up where he's gotten 5-6 targets. I mean, he can get there, I guess, super cheap. I just don't think, what's he going to get, 3 targets?
Yeah, like I was literally about to say his ceiling is probably 3 targets, maybe 4.
It's a showdown slate. Showdown slate. Like, would you rather play Quez than like a Justin Watson or a Sky Moore?
I would probably rather play Justin Watson if Tony and Hardman are out.
Yeah.
If just Hardman's out, I might lean Quez.
Yeah, I'd probably play Quez over Sky. I mean, again, it's just a big play.
But like
guy.
Tony's had these mid-game aggravation to his injuries like for so long now that like Watson could still have a path even if Tony's active.
Oh yeah, Tony's not making it through the game, unfortunately. I like Tony, but like he's just not gonna. I don't think he's making it through the game. He seldom makes it through all the games. Zach Pascal, is this his first Super Bowl?
I mean, he's played for the Colts, so it has to be.
Yeah, I forget how old he is. But yeah, probably so. So yeah, I'm not really into this fella.
Coming from the Bills fan.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm a Falcons fan. That's pretty.
We've been to 4 in a row.
I went to the Super. I got to the Super Bowl, buddy. And then
I was gonna say, like, I don't think there is tilting like you must have tilted that year, because now I start to realize that it can be just way worse. Because I was a mess for months after last year's game against Kansas City.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine the range of emotions that you had during that 28-3 debacle.
I think about it every day.
Yeah, I would too.
I think about it every day. We had a enormous party over here, and we're winning at halftime. People like my in-laws left. They're like, "Oh, we got it." And then I'm looking at my one friend. He's like a season ticket holder, lifelong fan. He has gone to the corner of my backyard, and he's just standing there, kind of in the dark. And like halftime it's not even over yet. And he's just like, I've seen it before, man. He's like, I am not feeling good. I am worried. And then he stayed in the backyard the entire rest of the game and just watched it from like the porch. And it was terrible. And one of the worst things, aside from us losing the game in the fashion that we did, obviously it was Shanahan's fault, like without a doubt. And then Matt Ryan too, for not letting. I mean, look at me go getting on these rants. But Matt Ryan for not running the clock. You could literally take a knee the entire second half and win the Super Bowl. But
what sucks too?
What?
Julio Jones had one of the greatest catches in the history of football, and nobody remembers it.
No.
That was like, I don't even know if we talked about this. Julio is one of my favorite receivers in the history of football. That catch was as good as it gets, and it's like nobody remembers it because of the events of that game.
And the Edelman catch too was great. But one of the worst parts about that for me personally in my bankroll management is that I bet one team as a fan to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season at like plus like 40,000 to whatever it was, like a huge number of money. And I think I put like $500 on it for the Falcons to win the Super Bowl. And I was high, buddy. I don't remember what the number was. I remember it was like 5 digits. I was about to make a lot of money. I hedged it, but not hedge. I didn't hedge half of it. Fucking sucked. All right. Rant over.
I will say I'll take not making the Super Bowl over that any day.
Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad, and we're nowhere close to getting back there. And all right, let's move on.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear about our terrible, terrible moments as fans.
Hey, Dallas Goedert. If you don't have AJ Brown or you don't have Devontae Smith, I'm gonna recommend you get some Dallas Goedert in your lineup. Like the ball's going to one of these guys. Goddard's the cheapest, 6,400. Like him quite a bit. He could be. I mean, I think AJ Brown or Smith getting the end zone has a big game. But if it is not one of those two, then it should be Dallas Goedert. What do you think about Goedert?
Yeah, I love Goedert. I think he's somehow one of the most underrated tight ends in football. I think talent-wise, he's right after Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews. He's amazing. And the thing I love about Goedert too, he may only get 6 targets in a game. Mm-hmm. But because he's been, any time he's on the field this season, top 5 in yards after the catch per reception, yards per target, yards per, like he's top 5 in all the metrics you love for a tight end in fantasy. So he only needs 5-6 targets to get there. The only thing you don't love about Goedert is he rarely, this has been 2 years running now, before AJ Brown got there, he rarely gets end zone targets. But he's also one of those tight ends that I mentioned, like Kelsey, that can get you 85, 90 yards because he's so good on a per-target basis. So, yeah, I always love Goedert, and this is a matchup that's nothing to fear. So,
yeah, I like Goedert a lot. Chiefs have been bad against the tight end, giving up 9 receiving touchdowns on the season. That is tied for like the 5th worst, something like that, allowing 12.2 DraftKings points per game. As far as I'm looking at the targets here. How much are they targeted? I assume it's a lot because teams
throw against them all the time. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. Like the Eagles have actually been targeted a little bit more, but it's very slight. But the Chiefs have given up 3 times as many touchdowns to the tight end. And Goedert, yeah, he's up there in the elite tier for sure. So yeah, give me a lot of Dallas Goedert, especially at the price. Behind him, you've got guys like Jack Stoll, Grant Calcaterra that will just bring up because it's a showdown. I don't think you need to get there. Neither of them are going to get there unless Dallas Goedert gets hurt. Agree?
Yeah, if I'm going to go to that range, I would just take a shot on a Kansas City tight end over a Philly tight end.
Yep, I'm with you. Kickers, defenses. Look, it's kickers and defenses. I don't know how to really break this down. You're hoping one of them gets there. Prices are 42.
2 aggressive head coaches too that are not afraid to go for it. So it's always interesting when you have that too, especially Sirianni. Like if it's 4th and 4 from like close to midfield or obviously past midfield, probably going for it. Especially if you're facing Patrick Mahomes. Like we've seen teams get even more aggressive facing Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. Like. So, like, Sirianni, who's already been aggressive, probably makes me lean towards Bucker just because Jake Elliott, he's fine. But, like, Sirianni's – and it's not like Andy Reid's not aggressive either, but Sirianni's been pretty ultra-aggressive this season in terms of going for it, especially when you have there's not many occasions where it's 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 and the Eagles aren't going to run that patented quarterback sneak.
Do you think that Harrison Butker would have attempted a field goal if the Bengals didn't give up that 15-yard penalty? at the end of the game. Just attempted it.
So would it
even
have
though-
been a 60-plus yarder?
something like that.
I mean, the game was tied, right?
Yes.
It's 2020, right? Yeah. So yeah, probably 60 yarders, probably.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think. It was like 3rd and 4, and it was like a 5-yard run from Mahomes, and then plus the 15-yard penalty. So
dumb. So dumb. He should have gotten chewed out by his teammates. I'm sorry. That was stupid. I know he. I mean, I know it, like he felt bad about it, but I don't know. Not good. I'm really more upset because it killed my show or killed my 2-game lineup. Defenses, no one's going to want to play them. It's a Super Bowl.
no one wants to watch a 12-10 game.
I think there's going to be scoring in this game, but that doesn't mean like a defense can't get there. Like all they have to do is get, all they have to do. But if you score a touchdown, it doesn't matter if you give up another 30 points. Like you're still probably going to find yourself on the optimal.
It's tough too because like the Eagles D-line is obviously loaded. The Chiefs is fine. Like Chris Jones, they've been playing him more on the edge lately, and he's been great. He can obviously play in the interior too. The problem is Hurts doesn't turn the ball over. Mahomes doesn't, like, he turns the ball over a little bit, but it's mostly from the superhero plays he tries to make. And then you have 2 of the best offensive lines in football. So are we going to see a ton of sacks? I mean, sure, obviously there will be some, but like the Eagles are the best offensive line in the league. The Chiefs are top 5.
Mm-hmm.
So like really there's no, like you try to make a case for one of these defenses, but nothing really projects well for the defenses other than the fact that there's good players on the Eagles side of the ball. There's okay players on the Chiefs side of the ball. Like if I had to lean one, it'd be the Eagles just because they have the better overall, defense, and their defensive line is loaded. Maybe Mahomes isn't quite 100%, and he's not running as much. Therefore, it's easier to defend. Easier to defend Patrick Mahomes is kind of a weird thing to say. But if I had to lean one, it'd be Philadelphia just because they have more talent, and I think their offensive line is better, despite how good the Chiefs' offensive line still is. So,
okay, yeah, you get a little scoop and score action. Maybe one of the running backs.
What's the line for this game right now?
Let's see.
Because I honestly haven't even looked.
Philly -1.
What's the total?
49.5.
I feel like 49.5 seems kind of low. I thought it'd be higher. I guess the Chiefs' wide receiver injuries and maybe Mahomes isn't 100% might be factoring in, but I might take the over on 49.5.
I'm not sure yet. I haven't really looked at that. I know they're doing a betting guide over on FTN Bets, so go check that out. Should be coming pretty soon, I think. Plenty of time for the Super Bowl. And I want to go look at some props, too. Some Rihanna props.
Yeah, I saw Meanie posted what's the first song going to be?
Yeah, I couldn't even name a Rihanna song. If I heard it, I would recognize it, I'm sure. Or Umbrella, I know that.
That's what I think is going to be number 1.
I think you have to go and listen to like you go listen to the songs and how they open up and how you'd maybe want to open up a show.
Exactly.
So we'll see. Maybe I'll do that. Hey, let's talk about
that's the research that needs to be done.
I always get into that stuff, man. And
so you get into the anthem, the length of the anthem and stuff like that.
That one's always
the Gatorade.
Easy. It always leaks. I don't do the Gatorade. I find that one. I don't do the coin flip and I don't do the Gatorade. I like the real novelty props. Like there used to be ones like how many times will they show if the I think the Giants were playing and it was like how many times will they cut to Archie Manning, like over 2.5 or a lot of those I like because they always hit the under because it's the Super Bowl and there's like everyone jamming in like commercials and sponsors and all this stuff. They don't cut to anybody in the stands. Those are always good ones. My favorite one I ever hit, it was when the Who played the halftime show. And Pete Townsend, he does the move where he like slings his arm around when he's playing guitar. He does the windmill, and it was like over under like, I don't know, 7.5 windmills. And he was doing a guitar solo and just ripped off like 30 of them. And we were like, everyone in my house had it and we were going wild. That was a good one. So we'll look for more stuff like that. Let's talk about captains. Let's talk about flex plays, some salary savers, and then maybe we'll take an early stab at who we think is going to win the game. I'm not really sure yet who I think it's going to be, but we'll see. Favorite captains for me. assuming you can't fit like Jalen Hurts, I think that's going to be tough to do. Assuming you can't fit Patrick Mahomes, I mean, those are going to be my favorite two. Those are being about my guys over on FanDuel. I'm probably looking over here at the Eagles wide receivers, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. I think that's probably a good way to go, and I'd probably list them in that order.
Yeah, I would add Kelsey, but AJ Brown definitely stood out to me as well. And like Dallas Goedert is no slouch at tight end. Like Kelsey's obviously getting all the buzz, but Dallas Goedert's really good, so I like the Goedert call as well.
Yeah, I mean, on the Chiefs side over there too, like I'm scared of McKinnon these days. We had the Williams conversation about when he helped win him the Super Bowl last time. It could easily be a McKinnon day. Like if he gets the high hand over Pacheco, fine, could be that. And the wide receivers are pretty cheap for the Chiefs too. Like I can see sprinkling them in, but if I have to choose, I'm going to go with the Eagles side there. Yeah, I think that's going to be the way I go. If that changes, I'll let you know on Sunday at the Super Bowl show or in my article. Any other captains you want to touch on? To me, pretty cut and dry.
Yep.
Any like flex plays you want to just hammer home or say like you should get in your lineup? Like to me, the way I'm going to try and do it, I already mentioned double quarterback lineups. I don't think you have to pair Hurts with two pass catchers. He can get it done on the ground too. You can pair them with like running backs that can catch the ball, both Mahomes and Hurts. Mahomes, I probably want two pass catchers with because he's less likely to run the ball in for a touchdown, especially with the ankle injury that he's dealing with. Although it is the Super Bowl, if it's open, he'll go for it. But two pass catchers with Mahomes, one with Hurts at least. Mix in a defense kicker, that's fine. Don't use your full salary, obviously, unless you want to tie with a lot of people. And I think there's going to be a lot of dead money because it's a Super Bowl, and people will come in and just use their full salary or right up into their full salary and make some pretty similar builds that don't tend to win. So leave some money on the table is what I would say do. That's just kind of overall thoughts.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of hammer home again that in terms of flex plays, I'm the more I talk about it, I do really like Kenneth Gainwell.
Okay, yeah, that's like a low-owned kind of guy. I'm into that. And we talked about Justin Watson a little bit too. Like if the injury news breaks correctly, I also think Kadarius Toney's pretty good too. Not really into the Pascal Watkins, Sky Moore range of players. Not really into the low end like Boston Scott kind of plays. I think if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is active, I think at $1,000 it's worth a shot on some teams. I'm just going to say it. I mean, I think
it's showdown.
It's a showdown, and it's still like I know Pacheco's past him. I know McKinnon's past him. It's $1,000, man. Let the boy take a couple cracks at it in the big game if he's healthy, especially if one of those other guys goes down. Anything else we want to cover here? Who do you think's going to win?
I just think Philadelphia's better team across the board outside of a couple spots. A quarterback, obviously Mahomes is the best in the league. Kelsey is the best tight end in the league. But other than that, Philadelphia has the edge at wide receiver, at offensive line, which is saying something because the Chiefs' offensive line is great too, at corner, at safety, probably at D-line in terms of depth. So, like, I just think they're the better team. But it's tough to count out Patrick Mahomes. I am going to go with the Eagles, though. I'm going to say 31-27 Eagles. And the Super Bowl MVP will be... I usually like to go off the board with Super Bowl MVPs, but I'm just going to go Jalen Hurts.
I'm starting to lean towards the Chiefs a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to stay there. If the Chiefs can come in with the same mindset like they had against the Bengals, who I thought was a better team too.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think they got a real good shot. And I mean, look, it's Mahomes. He's lost the Super Bowl. We know. I think, man.
You also have the effect of an extra week. We know Andy Reid off the bye in the regular season is like unbelievable, and you have essentially a bye here with the extra week. So, yeah, I mean, like, I think the Eagles top to bottom have the best roster in the NFL, but Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are, as good as it gets at quarterback and head coach. So this will not be easy for Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. And I think if like the Chiefs, I don't know, say they have the ball 2 minutes left, drive it down the field, I think they can get there and win the game. Like, I think that they can will themselves a win here. Even though I agree it sets up better for the pass catchers of the Eagles, that doesn't mean that Patrick Mahomes can't go out there and have a good game. I think they're just going to keep being able to move the ball down the field. That's just how I feel. So right now, I think I'm going to lean with the Chiefs side. Again, that could change. That's just kind of where I'm at right now. Anything else you want to talk about, man? You want to wrap this up?
No, I'll just say also, if you are hype about basketball, we are doing a trade deadline stream Thursday, probably starting around 1:30 until about 3, a little bit after 3 when the NBA trade deadline hits. Myself, Zach Graham, and Eddie Fear. I'll be on Thursday, so look out for that. And, of course, all the Super Bowl content. You're doing the stream on Sunday. There's articles. There's bet stuff. There's a ton of Super Bowl content over at FTN, so.
Yeah, and we'll really hammer home like the captain plays, the flex plays, and like exactly. I do a whole thing about like rules to use in the FTN optimizer that have helped me win a few times this year. It's what I'm going to be doing again. I think the package is like $20 or something right now. If you just want to come over for the next week and hang out, see if you like it. You also get access. We also have other packages where you get access to all of our sports, PGA, NBA, all the stuff going on right now. So check that out. Again, also go check out MOJO. We are presented by MOJO. There's been a little ticker at the bottom of the screen with the promo code on it. Go sign up if you haven't already. It's a fun way to play.
So you somehow muted yourself.
Damn. we made it we made it that far. And then I don't know, I was just really rattling stuff off. Appreciate everyone coming in and checking us out. Hit a like on your way out, subscribe to the channel, check out all the other great stuff we have at FTN, and we will see you next time. Bye.